we're back to that idea that in this subject, you either take anecdotal experience, eyewitness accounts as having value, or you don't. And the idea of throwing them out completely and throwing out all of it's ignorance to a preponderance of evidence that leads to this level of confidence in the absence of UAP.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Shared Unknowns. It seems, Sean, that this week the news is really driving us forward again.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Mm.
What do you got?
So, I mean, back to one of our world leaders, Trump. On February the 19th, President Trump posted on the Truth Social directing the Pentagon and federal agencies to begin identifying and releasing all government files related to alien life, UAP, and UFOs, calling them highly complex, but extremely interesting and important matters. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth responded with an alien emoji. It responded with an alien emoji salute, which is, it feels very weird, you know.
Yeah.
World leaders kind of talking about this stuff, and not only that, but then heads of staff and secretaries kind of just responding to it in like an emoji format. It's it really is a different world we live in. So yeah, let's but of course this all came from Obama, really. You know, I think everyone was kind of unexpected when I feel like it's every interviewer's favorite question to ask anyone of significance now is, are aliens real, or do you believe in aliens? You know, it seems to be a hot topic for any podcaster or interviewer or even just news reporter now. So obviously Obama was asked on the podcast, the Brian Taylor Cohen podcast, in the lightning round, hey, you know, are aliens real? And I don't think anyone was expecting to say, yes, they are real, but I haven't seen them. And they're not kept in Area 51. So obviously that clip went viral worldwide. And of course, Obama then clarified next day, saying, statistically speaking, they are real, but no evidence during his presidency that extraterrestrials have made contact with us. But that, I suppose that doesn't mean, you know, before his presidency they have made contact, or they were already in contact. And it feels like, you know, if extraterrestrials, just on a slight tangent, were known to a level of the government, it doesn't really make sense for presidents to know if it is a very top secret thing, because it changes hands too much, and there's too many secrets to be changing of hands, especially if it's out of their control. So, of course, Trump followed on from that. Aboard Air Force One, a reporter was saying, I don't know if, well, he asked a reporter asked Trump, so I don't know if they're real or not, and suggested Obama may have revealed classified information, joking he might get him out of trouble by declassifying. So yeah, so on one hand, it feels like Trump was saying that Obama said something classified. Now, he mentioned Area 51, as we previously mentioned, and he mentioned they are real. So what part of that is true, I suppose? Assuming we get the files at some point, we'll find out.
Well, it seems like at each turn, Trump muddies the waters one way or the other. You know,
Yes.
stating that he doesn't know if they're real or not means that, unless he's lying, which again is part of his toolkit, means that he hasn't been briefed yet. But then stating that President Obama revealed classified information, again, if he wasn't briefed, or maybe President Trump was told that's classified and you don't get to know.
Yeah.
There's been a few expert reactions. Now, given I have to say this is really a battle right now between the skeptics and the apologists. You and I wouldn't be here today if we didn't agree that there was ample evidence for further inquiry and further investigation and declassification of this information. And it seems apparent to most subject matter experts, even if they're laymen, that there is a preponderance of government evidence that is still in the black that would shed some light on this subject.
Definitely, yeah.
But Sean Kirkpatrick, the former AARO director, views Trump's orders as a distraction for the administration, warns the public not to be disappointed. I have to say, for once, I actually agree with Mr.
Mm.
Kirkpatrick. Many sightings have prosaic explanations, and he says that some people will continue to cry conspiracy no matter what's released. That's a very political and measured response. I would agree. A lot of people will cry conspiracy no matter what, but that's not the whole of the problem. And as usual, Mr. Kirkpatrick seems like he just kind of doesn't really care about the job or the task he was given. It seems that he's on the skeptical side, very deeply embedded.
Yeah, it's a means to an end for him. It's a career, kind of part of his career, and it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? If government disclosure happens, there'll always be people that believe them, and there'll always be a level of people that don't believe them. It doesn't matter, obviously, who's in presidency. There's the again, this topic's been tarnished for so long by government. Yeah, is it the information they want to give us? Is it the information we want to hear? Is it the actual truth? Only time will tell, unfortunately. What I have found surprising, obviously, Sean Kirkpatrick has kind of said a bit about this, but AARO actually, I believe, haven't said anything. They've remained silent, which is strange because they're the department meant to be investigating this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they've been told, I don't know, like, wait for the president to do his thing. I don't know. Yeah, so it's because you expected them to make a statement, but it feels like AARO's job is against everyone else's in terms of they're kind of fighting in their own little corner over there. From the government and from the public side, they've not really made many friends, I feel like, in the grand scheme of things since they've been around. But
Maybe
yeah,
time to reinvestigate, or for them to revisit their mission statement.
Exactly, yes.
I will say on the positive side, Avi Loeb from Harvard and Galileo Project says he's eager to examine the files. He says that mundane explanations cover most cases, but there will be a few incidents out of 100 that would be really anomalous, or there might be, I should say, a few incidents out of 100 that would be very anomalous. He says that's what he's looking at. He's briefed Congress and he's offered to help interpret any disclosed data. So Avi's obviously a shining light in the community as far as moving this beyond the old SETI research. But that brings us to some sour grapes from Neil deGrasse Tyson. He says he's skeptical.
I mean, he loves some sour grapes these days.
Yes, I think he does. It's his favorite vintage. He says billions of photos, and millions of hours of video are uploaded daily to the internet. None of them contain image of actual aliens. That's a very bold statement to make. It attributes most sightings to unfamiliarity with optical, climactic, and astronomical phenomena that he calls aliens of our ignorance. It's tough to listen to what he has to say at any given point. Granted, at this point, I'll say we've watched Neil go on just about every podcast and roll over every host to make sure that they know he's the smartest guy in the room. But the lack of curiosity on his part and the assurance that he already knows what's what in a unlimited universe practically still puts a smirk on my face.
I'm just surprised he has enough time to go through billions of photos and millions of hours of footage every day, not see one alien.
Yeah. They should put him on the Epstein files.
Oh, God, yeah. No, he'd solve everything, honestly. But, I think the fair point is, in that sense, like, there is obviously a lot of footage and there is a lot of data, as we've previously mentioned in a previous episode. But the issue is there's almost too much footage and too many pictures and too much video, Having to sift through all that data now is becoming a bigger and bigger task. And even you say we've got billions. I mean, yeah, there probably are billions of photos taken every day now, and there probably are millions of hours of video taken daily. I would like to actually see YouTube's kind of upload rate every day. It must be insane. But I think the issue is the camera tech actually hasn't really gotten any better. It's stagnated for a long time, like especially in I'm more and more talking about phone cameras. Like they're actually terrible if you've tried pointing it at the sky and even tried to take a picture of an airplane, like it's
Hmm.
just not great. The zoom, unless you've got like an ultra phone and you've got a very steady hand and the lighting's great. Otherwise, they're not great for taking long distance aerial photography. They're really,
Hmm.
really bad. And it's a surprise, like if there are any, obviously we've had, and into the last couple of years with all these drones across America and everything, and even parts of Europe, and all their footage is absolutely terrible. Like it's so unclear because it's all camera phone footage, which is not good at night and which is terrible at like bright things against a black background. So it's like, yes, we've got a lot more data and a lot more footage, but a lot of that data is completely useless in what
Hmm.
we need. Like it really does require specialist gear to get really good high quality photos in the night, moving objects and flashing lights. And like again, it's a double edged sword. Yes, there's more data, but not all of that data is actually great, and most of it is unusable in this level of investigation. So yeah, that's, well, yeah, again, sour grapes. But he's always been on that aspect with this topic. He's never been. He's always been completely and utterly kind of on that fence of, well, not even on the fence, in the mud of skepticism in that sense. When he, I don't think, unless an alien lands in front of him, he'll believe in them visiting us.
Yeah, yeah. There does seem there's a credibility gap with the person who's claiming to be leading this investigation, and I think there may be a intellectual gap with how much he's going to be able to understand. Um, Scientific American published a piece arguing Trump's order obscures the scientific search for extraterrestrial life, noting that no government report to date has produced evidence of extraterrestrial visitors and that legitimate scientific efforts like SETI and the Galileo Project continue in parallel. I'm always struck when we hear things like that because there's an absolutist viewpoint to it that only we curate this data, only we understand this data. And we're back to that idea that in this subject, you either take anecdotal experience, eyewitness accounts as having value or you don't. And the idea of throwing them out completely and throwing out all of it's ignorance to a preponderance of evidence that leads to this level of confidence in the absence of UAP. And it bothers me because it shows the hole in our science. I don't think all scientists I don't want Neil deGrasse Tyson to believe in aliens. I don't need
No,
but
no, yeah.
I do want him to be curious and to not dismiss evidence and to dismiss historical value. And that seems to be the main battle we're fighting in the public eye with this subject.
No, there's still a high level of stigma, honestly. And yeah, a very weird statement by Scientific American in terms of no government report to date has ever produced any evidence. But the whole point of declassifying files is to find things that they haven't told us, you know? Like, unless they've told us extraterrestrial life is here, then we wouldn't know. Like, that's kind of what we're waiting for, you know, these files to be given to us. Otherwise, we'd be having very different conversations for many, many years.
Mhm.
Again, yeah, it's weird, like the old school science, I would say, has become very close-minded in a lot of these topics. And you know, the mainstream scientific forum is feels like a very kind of old school kind of way of thinking, where
Mhm.
again it takes away from the human elements, you know, the people side of things. You know, science, you know, we investigate science as people, and we experience things as people, and as you said, they don't really take any of that into account unless it's on a
Mhm.
piece of paper,
Mhm.
and unless it's got 10 different data points and you know, been peer reviewed by 20 different people and published in Scientific America, then it's not, like, it's not true. So yeah, it would be nice if there was a bit more open mindedness in the scientific world, in the mainstream scientific world. But I suppose for them, like, unless there's again hard data that's put right in front of them,
Mhm.
then they're not really going to be interested in looking for themselves. Because I mean, there's plenty of data out there to look at that can blow your mind from many different
Mhm.
testimonies and many different
Mhm.
stories and credible people and all around the world, in every walk of life. But yeah, it seems the people element in this topic no one really cares about in the mainstream. It's all to do with no government report or no billions of photos or anything like that. It's they forget the people behind this, and yeah, and it's the people that have the experiences. So kind of very bizarre, I suppose, in that sense, at least from my perspective.
Yeah. To wrap it up, I think there's two schools of thought going on that are occupying the space right now. One of them is the Epstein distraction theory, and
Yeah,
in the unknown communities, a lot of it is this is going to be a slam dunk for disclosure, and I think that a lot of people are going to be disappointed. But I have to say, Christopher Mellon, as usual, has chimed in with the voice of reason. He said this might be a consequential moment, but the impact will depend on the follow through.
completely agree. It just depends on what we're given. It could be a bunch of redacted forms with a couple of dates on, and that's it, or it could be literally full blown disclosure, or it could be a blurred of the lines. It could say some things and leave more questions. Like we just need to wait and see. I think a lot of people get ahead of themselves and get very excited, about the potential reveal of extraterrestrial entities visiting Earth, or at least signs of extraterrestrial entities potentially in our, well, not solar system, but beyond our solar system. People want to get to the from A to B straight away, but it really depends on the journey to point B from point A, really, and that's what we're waiting for. Like, it could be 1 million files released by the government. It could be 10. No, it could be 1. We have no idea. So I think there's no point in getting overexcited, and because they could literally give anything to us, and it's in their
Well,
control, and that's a scary thing, I suppose.
some folks are gambling that they're going to give us something and that they're
Mm,
going to be able to make money off of it. A UFO ETF has launched. That's an exchange traded fund. I'd never heard that before. But Tuttle Capital Management launched a UFO Disclosure ETF on February 5th, an actively managed fund investing in aerospace, defense, advanced material, and energy companies positioned to benefit from government disclosure or commercialization of non human intelligence technologies. Trump's announcement came 2 weeks after they launched their company. So it looks like these
interesting.
folks timed that rather well.
Yeah, these things always seem to happen around the big announcement, don't they?
Hmm.
Especially when there's money involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, if this was a few years ago, instead of an EFT, it'd probably be an NFT, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've not heard of EFT before, so I definitely have to check that out. But yeah, at the end of the day, if there's technology to be had and technology to investigate and advance materials, there'll be plenty of money changing hands from the
Hmm.
private sector to the public sector. So anyone who can get pre-prepared and ready and in a good place for when that does happen, if it does happen, like these people at Total Capital Management think that is going to happen, they're preparing themselves. And if you're first in line, then you're going to reap the benefits. So it makes sense that someone is jumping the queue in this sense.
I'm wondering if they were spurred to create that company based on Helen McCaw's article that was moving
Yeah.
around the last few months.
No, I can imagine that I mean, that kind of went viral online and through the news in many areas, and especially even in the cryptocurrency market,
Hmm.
that blew up there as well. And like Helen McCaw did say in her article, this will fundamentally change our currency globally. And
Hmm.
so, we would have to have a whole new system, I feel like, in one way or another. So, yeah, very, very interesting. And yeah, it probably has inspired a lot of people to think about that aspect now of money and the finances globally. Disclosure was to happen in some form or another.
Hmm.
It really would fundamentally change the trading of things around the world. So yeah, no, it's very interesting, and I'm sure we'll see many more pop up in the coming few years. The more that gets released about this topic.
Hmm. So there were a few notable sightings this week, and I kind of say that tongue in cheek. In El Paso, Texas, last week on February 10th, a UAP report prompted the U.S. military to disrupt cell phone signals in the area and nearly resulted in the closure of El Paso's international airport for 2 weeks. Now, there are still some sketchy reports coming out. Some people are stating that it was a party balloon. Initial response of apparently some governmental agencies was in thinking that it was a cartel drone. So I'm not exactly. I haven't really distilled exactly what happened. You've got two sides there, but again, we're back to this idea that the skies are full of objects that are moving around, whether they're drones, whether it's natural phenomena or UAP. Um, the national just this past week in Robbie Creek, Idaho, the National UFO Reporting Center completed an investigation into a February 6th sighting.
Okay.
Multiple circular white and green objects were observed crossing paths and maneuvering at high speeds, and footage was included in their official report as well.
Interesting.
So maybe we can get that ported over to Nanu.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, I find this interesting. At the end of one of these reports, it said that California leads all states with 17,000 total UFO reports logged at the National UFO Reporting Center as of February 2026. Nationally, the Pentagon has received 1,652 UAP reports through 2024. And it goes on to attribute those to mostly to balloons, drones, and other weather events. But what this shows is that these reports keep coming in. It hasn't stopped, and it it really does look like they don't get investigated most of the.
No. At least not in the public sense. You know, we have no idea what happens behind the scenes. And yeah, like, of course, a lot of people nowadays will just direct straight to it's drones or it's, you know, balloons still causing problems in our skies, apparently, which I find hilarious still. But, you know, you only have to go back 20, 30 years when we didn't really have drones. And then you go back even further, 50, 60 years when drones weren't even a figment of our imagination in the grand scheme of things. And yeah, I bet there's still thousands of reports a year about seeing UFOs when a lot of these things weren't even in our sky at that time. Again, you got the old things like Project Blue Book with a lot of reports and a lot of, again, unexplained phenomena back there. There's still some very well unexplained cases. Yeah, at least from the public face side, it doesn't really seem that it gets investigated. There's obviously a bunch of public organizations, non-profits that trying to investigate these with some level of mainly just data collection and filing report. I think, yeah, it's very. You would have thought a good way of investigating these in a live sense would to be like to send your own drones up with cameras on and try and chase them. So maybe we need like a drone, you know, kind of UFO, UAP kind of task force that flies up and tries to get close to these things to record, because camera phones definitely aren't the way forward in that. So maybe we need to think outside the box and how we actually investigate and collect these data, and we need to get a bit more high tech. Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting. I would love to know what happens behind the scenes in terms of the more government military investigations and how they classify things and how serious they treat them, because I can imagine in some of these areas where it is a military base or an airfield or something like that, or a naval yard, these things are probably very very important to keep a track on.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, those files probably get locked away and never seen the light of day. So, yeah, it's a tricky balance of, again, we don't know if they get reported and investigated. Well, we know they're reported, but we don't know if they get investigated. At least from not the public eye. It's we just get like a yearly report. Oh, you know, 16,000 drones or whatever were contributing to the 17,000 reports. Is that because someone at a computer is like, oh, that's a drone, you know, or is it, oh, you know, what levels of investigation does it go through to attribute it to a balloon or a drone or the weather? You know, who makes that decision, and how do we trust that decision making, I suppose, because we don't know who it is or the process of it. So there's a lot of unknowns, unfortunately, in the investigation of these when it comes to these types of reports. Unfortunately.
I will hand it to President Trump, though, by bringing it to a national level like he is. Granted, as with so many things, it's going to come with you know ridicule and support on on this strange binary system we seem to be living in. But what he has done is scratch the heads of the world by saying that this is a subject worthy of speaking about, and
Mm.
perhaps it will get more people to ask questions of, of those 17,000, how many were explained, and of the unexplained, how many were investigated, and it might change things. It might get this out there, I dare say, on a ballot at some point,
Yeah, yeah.
or in some kind of referendum. But it it's really hard to bring people who have not had experiences or are of a purely skeptical nature over onto the side of curiosity.
No, definitely. Completely agree. Unfortunately, it's if you've not seen or heard anything, then why are you meant to believe in this stuff, you know? And then, I mean, all it takes is one case, one very valid, credible case, unknown case to change the world. So we will see. We will see what comes of Trump's declassification of these files at some point.
So, what's new over at Nanu these days?
Yeah, so we're working towards a couple of big updates for Nano. We are working on a guest mode for everyone, so you don't need to be logged in to see what's happening on Nano. It also allows you to kind of browse if you're curious or you're not sure to make an account. So you just want to kind of window shop, you could say, or as the modern people say these days, lurk and see what's being posted without committing to anything. So that's going to be available on Apple, Android, and our web platform. And then the big update coming out in a couple of months is our big community update, where
Mm.
people can create their own private and public communities. They can grow their communities. They can kind of do polls and events and really kind of build out either their researches, like their research groups, or if you're a content creator or kind of a podcaster like we're trying to do at the moment,
Mhm.
you can build out your following and like have a live 24/7 community for your shows and stuff. And or if you just want to run an experiencer group, you can do that privately, invite the people that you trust and build from there. So it really is a versatile thing. And then we have a full event system. So if you want to do meetups or virtual meetups or conferences, you can publicly create them or privately create them and share them across the entire internet. So yeah, so there's a few big kind of things coming our way, which will really complete kind of the basis of Nano before we get into some more investigative tools later down the line.
When is that community update?
Yep. So we're looking kind of mid Q2. So, which for anyone that's kind of April, May time is when we're looking for to release that. We'll be doing a testing phase before, and then we'll release it out to the public kind of April, May time once it's ready and more or less bug free in that sense.
Well, we will see what the next week brings us in
Mm.
regards to disclosure news. Hopefully next week we can, well, it's a tough hope there. I don't know if I hope that we get news for disclosure or if we get back to the planned topics we had to talk about, but
Yes.
one way or the other, I think we're going to have a few things to talk about going on from here on out.
Yep. Definitely. It's such a busy period now.